which is chapter 1, verse 22, and I'll read it to you. And it says, "Do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourself. Do what it says. Anyone who listens to the word but does not do what it says is like a man who looks at his face in the mirror, and after looking at himself goes away and immediately forgets what he looks like. But the man who looks intently into the perfect law that gives freedom and continues to do this, not forgetting what he has heard, but doing what he will be blessed in what it does." And I think, if I could just put it out there, that's kind of what I think we should all try and do. Is we're not going to get it right all the time, but we should practice what we preach. We should go out there and do the things that we've been called to do, and focusing on the one and almighty God. So, if you were at church on Christmas Day, you were able to pay attention to Cedric's sermon, and not the gifts under the tree or the turkey that's in the oven. That was probably you were timing it so that you could get into church, do what you needed to, get back and get the turkey out before it burnt. Or how you may feel later in the day as the Christmas puddings and things like that started to take its effect, and the scale in your stomach started pulling your eyelids down, and you needed that little strategic afternoon nap just to get you through the rest of the day. But you would recall that he spoke of the Christmas story. The essence that I extracted from that sermon that was delivered by Cedric was the relationship that God looks to establish and walk with us all through our lives, and the belief and faith in that relationship. Sometimes and I know that this is where I tend to shift sometimes in my own walk, is that you tend to fall into this book of works, and you think to yourself that your worthiness is based upon the book of works that you do. So how much you give, how kind you are, how many taxis you let in, all of these things, how much more recycling that you do, all of these things. We tend to say, well, if I've done all of these things, I'm worthy. But for me, it is not that. It's about establishing an authentic relationship. And in the world that I work, a young man asked me, he said to me, well, what is faith? What is Christianity? Because he was an unbeliever himself. And I said to him, well, look, Cedric and Michelle aren't here, because I actually met him here. But I'm going to just talk to you. And I said to him that it's about a relationship. It's your walk. It doesn't matter how good or bad you are at things, how much you've given or how little you have. It's a relationship. Just as you would stand before a minister and take your vows on marriage, you come in just warts and all. You're good and you're bad. And you establish that relationship that will last a lifetime. In actual fact, eternity. Because once you have taken on those vows with God, He never forgets you. And I think sometimes what happens is that we walk away from God and not God walking away from us. Looking at the year ahead, one can become completely overwhelmed by what is on the human horizon. The thunderous hooves of the challenges are indeed sounding scary, dangerous, and loud. I'm not going to go into those things, but we all have our thunderous hooves and clouds of dust that are on the horizon that we are looking into. And it may not be things on a macro scale. They could be things that are very much within our micro world. Just as it did for the Israelites when Pharaoh came to his senses. I mean, there's Pharaoh. He just released the Israelites and thought, wow, I've done a really good thing. And if you've, like me, an avid Star Wars fan, he was probably seeing the Jedi Knights walk out and thinking, wow, I feel really good now. And if any of you did see the latest one, and I recommend it's very therapeutic, you need to go and watch it. 2 royal family members were actually in the movie, and they were dressed up as clones. And there was one scene that they were in that you know it's them. And they said to the Jedi at the time that was using his Jedi mind tricks, they said to him, "We are so glad to see you." And that's how Pharaoh must have felt when Moses had walked out with the Israelites. He said, "Wow, I'm so glad I saw that guy, and I've just released all of the people that do the work for us. Wow, I feel good." And when he came to his senses, just imagine how he felt. He must have thought, "Oh my word, what have I done? Who's going to build my pyramid? You know, who's going to maintain my sphinx? You know, and polish my chariot? I've got no one to do this." And obviously he took counsel with his people and said, "Right, let's gather our army and off we go." Took his best chariots, spanned his horses onto those things, and they headed out into the desert to go and fetch the Israelites. But God in his wisdom told Moses, "Listen, I'm going to do something great to show people and show Egypt just how great and powerful I actually am." And just imagine being those Israelites. And I suppose we are those Israelites. We sit here today facing that Egyptian army coming at us with its thunderous hooves and dust and chariots and clanking and sounding of war coming towards us. And we sit here and we panic and we start forgetting everything that Michelle has done through the year, through Cedric, or through your own walk in life. And you forget everything and you start focusing on this one thing. And, you know, if we look at what they actually felt like, and just excuse me while I find the right reference here, because they was 2 very close to one another, and I thought this morning, Kevin, don't get the wrong one. So, and it says here, as Pharaoh approached the Israelites, he looked up, and there were the Egyptians marching after them. They were terrified and cried out to the Lord. They said to Moses, "Was it because there was no graves in Egypt that you brought us to the desert to die? What have you done to us by bringing us out of Egypt? Didn't we say to you in Egypt, 'Leave us alone, let us serve the Egyptians'? It would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the desert." Now, if you just reflect on this last year, 2019, if we go back a year ago and you stand and you look at what 2019 looked like, you probably thought you wouldn't have got through 2019. But here you are. You have made it through. But now you're looking at what 2020 is looking like, and you're saying there's no way that I'm going to get through 2020. And how am I going to get through 2020? Well, I think what we've got to do is that we have to remember that one thing, and it goes back to an old song, and I think it was the Bangles that sang it. I always have to bring a music reference into it somehow. And they're just walking like an Egyptian. Are you walking like an Egyptian? Are you walking like the Israelites did? That was where you're saying it's better to be back in those things that was there than it is to be looking forward to the things that go ahead. And I just want to add a little sidebar here. And this wasn't actually in the sermon now, but when you look at 2020, sometimes the challenges that you're going to face are necessary. Because, like you do if you're an avid gardener, you go and you trim the rose bush. Just imagine what the rose bush is saying. I don't think I need a haircut today. You don't need to trim me. I'm good. I'm producing flowers, and look how beautiful I make it, and you want to make me a stalk, just a stick in the garden. Why? Well, the only way that rose is going to produce an even better rose is if it faces the shears. If it faces those things that are going to be scary to that rose. And I use that metaphorically for you too. So even as I stand here, I look at 2020 and I think to myself, help. But I start looking in the wrong places. I lose sight of where I should be looking. because it is easier to focus on the approaching dust and the clouds than what I can't see. It is easier to toil in my own strength and to fight or flight as I see appropriate. It is easier to listen to the voice in my head than to the voice in my heart. You see, believe it or not, we have a God that is greater than any dust cloud and pounding hooves of the approaching chariots. It is just whether you choose to believe it or not. Listen to what Moses told the panicking, moaning Israelites. He said, and this is again reading Exodus 14 verses 13 and 14. Moses answered the people, "Do not be afraid, stand firm, and you will see deliverance. The Lord will bring you today. The Egyptians you see today, you will never see again. The Lord will fight for you, and you need only be still." And I think that's the key word, be still. And I looked around and sort of said, well, what are the other definitions of still? Still means standing still, not moving. It also means, in other versions, if you look at the King James Version, it means peace. They put the word peace at the end. And the Living Bible, they say, won't need to lift a finger. If you surrender these scary monsters to the Almighty God and say, I can't do this, it is not a sign of weakness, but a sign of strength. Because just as you go to the doctor and saying, look, I've tried everything in my own strength, from methylates, which I highly recommend for grazers, you'll never want to fall off your bike again, because it burns. It really does. And methylates fixes everything, you know. And you've done your Bactroban and you've done all those things, you've bandaged your leg, but it is still not looking good. Where do you go? You go to a doctor. But you put the faith in the doctor. The doctor sits and says, oh, we'll do this and that, and gives you a magic tablet, and off you go, and you feel much better. It's the same thing with us. It's just that we can't see it. And sometimes that, I think, is where we struggle, is that we can't see it. And, you know, if I give this over, is this going to really happen? You know, is this really going to happen? Or, you know, how much must I hand it over, and how much must I hold back and do it on my own? So in my crazy walk in life, the only thing I can say to you is that to live in the moment is to live in the moment that is now. And just to do what you can do, in other words, get on your knees and pray. That's all that you can do. That's what you're meant to do. That's all you're meant to do. Because God has said, well, Moses told the Israelites that you will have peace if you hand it over. If you don't need to lift a finger. He will fight those demons, those things, those hooves that are coming at you. So, surrender your plans and your circumstances that you see on the human horizon. Do not rely on your own strength, but that of the Almighty God who knows everything. We become stronger, we have more endurance, we even sleep better, and we'll find that peace and joy. Will the challenge disappear? No, not at all. You will face those approaching Egyptians, that army, that dust cloud. You will face it. You know, sometimes I think it would be quite nice, and I've said this to many people, that it would be quite nice if I got this email or WhatsApp or a letter or something and it was from God, or even a voice that came and said to me, Kevin, if it did, I think I'd have to probably go and change my clothes, because I think if I hear God's voice, I would really, really be in a position that is not good. But anyway, but it would be easier if that letter came, wouldn't it? And saying, you know what, Kevin, I want you to go down this road and turn right. And when you turn right, you'll see a little post box. Open that up, and there's the thing that's going to take away all your stuff. Or just go down to the bank, and when you arrive there, there'll be a guy, a nice guy. And this guy will give you the 50,000 rand that you need. I told him, and it's all sorted. Don't worry about it. You know, just go there and do it. But it doesn't happen like that. Because that's the way we would like it to happen. And God works in mysterious ways, and I can attest to that. So, in conclusion, allow me to share just a few personal testimonies with you that's happened with me over the last, almost 2 years. So one of the challenges I've always had was being able to secure my family's future in terms of making sure that financially that everything was taken care of, because that's the role that I take, is that I must make sure as the breadwinner that everything is taken care of. But to the point of that, in my own strength of trying to do all of this, it created more conflict and more, I should say, unhappiness than it did happiness, because I became unhappy. And when I became unhappy, then so did Haley, and then so did Nathan, and so did Cameron, because they feed off my energy. Until a friend sat me down, and I can mention his name, Rob Hasty, and he sat me down and he said to me, Kevin, you know what? You need to surrender. And then another friend came to me, and these are all at different times, and he said, Kevin, the problem you have is that you don't believe and you don't have faith. You've got faith, but you don't believe. And he said, just surrender. This is Rob. He said to me, just surrender your money. It's because you know what? At the end of the day, it's not your money anyway. It's God's money. He's given it to you. He's given you everything that you've ever needed. Every single little last cent He has given to you. It's His. And if He wants it, He will take it. Don't worry about giving it to Him. Because if He really wants it, He will really take it. But He has blessed you with what you have given. And He surrendered it. So that day, that night, I prayed and I said, right, okay, I'm going to take a chance and I'm going to give you my money. And these are just some of the things. We used to have I look at Haley and I smiled because she knows what I'm going to say. We used to have Sunday night family budget meeting. Whoa, now that was a lot of fun. Where we'd sit down and we'd look at all the expenses and what we're going to do and how we're going to budget and what we're going to do. And it always ended up going in the wrong direction. It ended up being more of a fight than it did anything else. Oh boy, Sunday night budget night meeting. It actually became a family joke. Not only within my family, but externally. Because it just never worked. But when I surrendered it, I sat down with Haley for the first time and we had a very open discussion about our budget and what we could do and what we couldn't do and how we were going to do to pay everything that was necessary. And it was amazing. I cannot still believe that it happens. And it still continues today where we have a conversation and it's about, oh, you need to do this and you need to do that and this and that. And in the past, I used to get myself so anxious. It's now a case, okay, all right, because God knows that. He knows I need to do these things and cool, we'll get it sorted out. And it's changed. Now, as a consultant, one thing that I have to do is that if I'm not working, I'm not earning. So December is my worst time of the year because everyone else goes on leave and your check is in the bank. Mine is sitting in your bank. And I've got to try and get your money out of your bank into my bank. And if I'm not working, there's no trade. But then you also have some people that because it's December, they get mad cow disease. And they forget to pay. And they run off and go on holiday because their check is in the bank because it's done electronically. Yours is done through an EFT. And they forget that the EFT list of people called consultants, because we are the last to be paid by anybody. So anyway, I said to myself, December's coming. I sent all the early notifications. Please, here's my invoice, blah, 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 blah. It is now the 4th of January and I'm still waiting. But God knew that this was going to happen. So what did He do? He started to bring in a few things a little bit earlier. I'm very blessed to work for a man in his organization and a very strong Christian man. And he felt it was necessary because of what I had done for him. And he didn't need to do this at all because I'm just a consultant to his business. He decided to pay me an incentive just because of he felt that he needed to. He just felt that the work I can't, but there was a little bit extra there. That it took care of what the other people had forgotten to pay for. Now, in my old life, I would have been stressing completely and trying to solve this out myself. But I surrendered and said, leave it. It will be taken care of. And it was right down to the last cent. Everything was taken care of. Everything. No debit orders bounced. Nothing. It's all fine. In actual fact, I've got more than I need. That's how good our God is. I also run a trust fund called Right for Education Trust, where we raise money for education to put kids through school and rebuild schools and things like that. I did not raise a single finger last year to do any fundraising. Not a thing. We raised over 125,000 rand without me doing a thing. And I'm the only person that does it. I did not speak to a soul. But I prayed to God and said that I'm distracted and I'm busy doing these things. And all I got back was this, it's done, leave it. It will happen. And it's so being that people came to me and said, listen, we hear that you're doing this project here. Here's money, here's money, here's money, here's money, here's goods, here's things. God provided without me having to stress about it, where I shouldn't do it. The last one I'll speak to you about was the end of it. I call it the end of a chapter. And it was the end of a schooling chapter for me, where I was working for an organization, an education organization that's just out of the blue, just called me in, as they do with consultants, called you in and saying, your services are no longer needed, thank you very much, and off you go. And that was on the 28th of the month. And I had the next month, within not even 3 or 4 days, the big hole in my budget was taken care of. Because what had I done? I'd done something I'd never, ever done before. And it wasn't, and I want to just put this out there just as a thing so you don't walk away with the wrong impression. I wasn't testing God. What I did was I listened to what I was told, as in James, and I surrendered. And I acted, and he said to me, God has always said to you, leave it to me. I have everything under control. Sometimes the challenge you face is because you walk away from me and you create the problem. You know, if it says in the Lord's Prayer, lead me not into temptation. Because we walk away from God. And our road that we walk on in our own strength just leads to a whole lot of hurt. Whereas in actual fact, if we face the hurt, but we face it with God, the hurt is still there, but we are able to persevere and walk through it. And we find the peace that passes all understanding. So, I challenge you today just to surrender. Surrender your own strength. Relinquish control. Allow God's power and might to stand before the army of hooves and chariots and spears and arrows. And see how mighty and all-providing our God is. And just see how He will defeat every single challenge that you face in 2020. So walk forward with confidence, not worrying about a thing. Don't even lift a finger, but pray. Leave it. Surrender it. And just keep walking. And you will see that 2020 will be better than 2019. In actual fact, probably be the best year of your life. Your offerings will now be taken.